It's supposed to be just a fun psychology channel, just covering popular culture, and it seems like every other video I am describing some horrific event that has happened. The most recent this weekend in Waukesha, Wisconsin, a guy named Darrell Brooks got in his SUV and drove through the local Christmas parade, mowing down, I guess, tons of people. 48 are in the hospital at this time of this recording. There are 5 that are dead, and who knows how many people will make it out of surgery, etc. I mean, it's an absolute freaking nightmare, leaving everybody to wonder, like, what's wrong with this guy and what leads someone to do this. So I want to try and tackle those 2 questions. I think at first glance, this looks like a kind of classic defense mechanism of displacement, right? The story is this guy was in a domestic dispute. He left that dispute, hopped in his car. He's driving down the street, sees this parade and goes, let's go there, and mows down all these people. I don't think it's displacement, but let me try and explain to you what this is. So displacement first was identified by Freud, and he talked about it as in reference to your dreams. The idea was at the time that, we have all of these sort of societal influences on us that make us feel like we have to act a certain way. And we experience shame and self-doubt, and we lose self-esteem when we have thoughts that are that go against societal standards. So what happens in Freud's mind was that we would go to sleep, and those unconscious or latent desires would distort our dreams and be symbolized in those dreams. So for example, you may not be comfortable with the idea that you're attracted to your neighbor, but in every dream you're walking around with a long-range rifle, which symbolizes your attraction to your neighbor. I don't know if he used the long-range rifle example, but you get the idea. Displacement now is described a little bit differently. It's less about the dreams, but the idea is the same, which is there are guidelines that we have to live by, and there are things that we want or feel, and it goes against society's standards. So what happens is instead of acting on those needs or those desires, we displace them onto something else. So for example, if you're fighting with your dad, it feels inappropriate for you to punch or attack your dad. It would hurt your self-esteem to act in such opposition with society's standards. So what you do is unconsciously shift that anger off of your dad onto maybe a police officer, also an authority figure, and you don't know it, but you're taking that anger and you're displacing it onto the cop. The key here is 2 things. First, it's unconscious, and second, there's a relationship. Those 2, the reason why you're picking the police officer is because he represents, or she represents your dad as an authority figure. It would not be displacement if you got in a fight with your dad and walked into the forest and chopped down a tree, right? Because the tree is not related to your dad. I guess unless your dad's an arborist, then it might be displacement. But you get the idea. The key is that there's a link between the 2. So in this case, I don't think displacement really fits because I don't know that there's a relationship between the domestic dispute that this guy had and the people in that parade. I think he left the parade and just went and mowed down those people. I don't think there was any kind of connection between the 2, which is actually a much more viable explanation. There's a lot of research saying that when people are in a violent mood, when you act violent in one place, you are much more likely to act violent in another place. We always talk about this idea of catharsis. Like you have a finite amount of anger. When it's triggered, you're mad at your dad and you need to go blow off some steam and the anger will dissipate. The reality is, from a psychological standpoint, it doesn't really work that way. If you're angry with dad and you go act angry somewhere else, that anger, past behavior becomes predictive of what you're going to do in the next setting. It's really hard to dial down anger once it's been triggered. So my guess is there was a frustration with this woman. He got in his car and he was so angry that he wasn't thinking. It led to increased impulsivity and he acted angry again. My guess would be after he drove through the parade, he didn't have any kind of release. My guess would be he continued to experience anger and frustration. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, look, how would you diagnose this kind of person? What puts someone in a position to do this? And I have, truthfully, we have no information at this point. I really have no idea. Obviously, antisocial personality disorder is the one that people are going to jump to. There's a lot of reasons to point to that one. And if I was forced, I would point to antisocial personality disorder. Very impulsive, a total disregard for human life and the people around him. If you look at Darrell's rap sheet, it is long, and he's a career criminal. So he sort of fits the standard antisocial personality profile. That's one option. It could be borderline personality disorder. It could be depression. It could be drugs or alcohol. It could be bipolar. He's manic and angry. It could be a million things. The bottom line is it's a disaster. He's a disaster. This is an absolute freaking nightmare for the people of Waukesha. They're in my thoughts and prayers. Please leave your comments below. Thanks for listening, and happy Thanksgiving. Wish I could have ended on a better note than that.